Thinking Out Loud Podcast. You already know what this is. You know who I am. TOLPcast.com. At IamJLip on Instagram. It's your boy J Lip. And in the building tonight, part 2 of the conversation I had with my white friend, Mr. Anderson Justice. Andrew Justice. Sorry. Andrew Justice.
Thank you, Caleb. I appreciate you having me here.
Caleb. Do not call me Caleb. That is not my name nor my pseudonym. However, keeping within the same vein of our conversation from last time, I want to make sure everyone knows this is a safe space. TOL Podcast is a safe space where we have conversations, where we have discussions, debates, and we're able to talk in a way that we can't necessarily feel as comfortable at work, but we can in this environment, and that's what I'm trying to create. With that being said, Andrew Justice is a friend of mine. Been to his home, played with his kids, had a Monopoly game that went awry. It was very aggressive, but that wasn't his fault. So, with that being said, I want to get straight to the shits, and I want to make sure the headphones are on because this is going to be explicit. And by explicit, I mean we're going to get to some very difficult and uncomfortable questions and discussions. The first one being reparations. We talked about that at the end of the last episode. I want to ask you if and when a person of color can prove that they are that they are a descendant of a person who was a slave, do they deserve reparations? So that was the yes or no question that we had earlier. And we're going to go into the stipulations. We're going to step into that. But at the end of the day, if I were to say that I was a direct descendant of a slave, do I, as a black man, deserve reparations?
Well, but those are two different questions, right? So first you said, do we support reparations? And then you say, do I deserve reparations?
Okay, so let's take away deserve and say, should black people who are descendants of slaves, direct descendants of slaves, have reparations, yes or no?
Based on the conversation that we've had before, I would say, while my heart goes out for people in those situations, I think that, like President Obama, that a reparations program would be wildly ineffective and improbable. And so, in the abstract, I would say no. It's not the best way to right those historic wrongs, and it's not even the most efficient way to do it.
So, what is the most efficient way to do it?
Well, I mean, I think that you keep doing the things that we've been doing. So we have.
But those things don't equate to leveling the playing field when it comes to the reparations that people are looking for. So if you think about the 40 acres and a mule, or if you think about, those were the promises that were given. So if you think about 40 acres and a mule, or if you think about education, for instance, one of the ways of reparations that some candidates have proposed in the past have been if you were to take away the student loan / the financial burden of education for black students in post-secondary education, so college, that would be a form of reparations. We're not talking about cutting a check for everybody. We're talking about...
Okay, but then when you say reparations, that's the immediate impression that everybody gets is, you walk up with, your DNA test, and the government hands you $1,000, $10,000, $50. I mean, whatever.
But see, that's the way that you're interpreting it.
Well,
so
there's no official proposal, right? So it's all pie in the sky. Hey, maybe we should do it this way.
But I'm giving you an option though. So I'm giving you the first option was
give me the program.
Okay, so the program.
Any descendant of any slave, any direct descendant.
Okay.
Any slave gets free college. That's the proposal.
Let's say that's the proposal for the first option.
Would I support that?
Would you support the fact that because during the slavery and the injustices of the Jim Crow era and everything prior to the civil, the Civil Acts era, everything that we have had to endure, and I say we meaning black people, we were a step behind. So if you were to absolve black people of their student loans, their financial aid for education, if you were to make education free for black people, it would kind of bridge the gap. Hold on.
A very specific subset.
But there's
just so I know, what percentage of current Black Americans are the direct descendants of slaves.
Well, just like from our previous conversation, which I will tell the people, we have recorded this episode once before, and it wasn't the one you heard. It was the one that got trashed because we had technical difficulties. But we're back. And so with that being said, it's not your fault. It's just the fact that it's technology. Even though you work in IT and you still couldn't get the shit right, but it still is the fact. It's still the fact is there are people who are descendants of slaves that are disadvantaged when it comes to opportunities in this country. The first wave of reparations.
But let me address that. And so, I mean, first and foremost, my heart goes out to anybody in that situation, everybody in that situation.
Do you understand? Do you understand though that when you say that your heart goes out, that is a condescending statement to people of color?
How's that condescending?
Because if you told me that a member of your family, if you told me that, and I'm going to say, do you have any aunts or uncles?
Yeah, of course.
Do you have any cousins?
Too many to count.
Okay. Do you have a great uncle?
Alive now or at one time in my life?
No, alive now.
Great. No.
Just say no. I'm picking a person that I don't want to put any ill will on. If I were to tell you my heart goes out to them,
somebody I love, but not enough that I'd be offended.
Right. Yeah, so if I were to tell you that my heart goes out to them, my heart is not really going out to them in a way that can benefit them. So to say to somebody, my heart, or to a culture, my heart goes out to you, it's like saying, yeah, I get it. You know, this shit was kind of fucked up, but, you know, at the end of the day, and whenever you say but, it's everything after the but that matters. So, and no pun intended.
But no, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So
I understand your point. But,
okay.
However, I think there's a counterpoint.
And however, it's the same as but. It's the same shit. Like, same.
I see your point. Period.
Yeah. Okay.
New thought. In this specific context, I think that the program of reparations would be wildly inefficient. It would be difficult to manage. And even the proposal that you gave us would be fraught with opportunities for fraud. And so, I mean,
Explain the fraud situation.
Well, I mean, the DNA test, for one, and anything that the government administers is always ripe with fraud. Right? I mean, look at Kamala Harris's Medicare for All, Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All. I mean, a large percentage of Medicare is fraud, right? And so, I mean, we could logically expect the same thing to happen here. And again, in general, I don't think that it's the best avenue for that.
Okay, so
the other problem I would have with that program specifically is, what about the people who were direct descendants of slaves but didn't need the money, right? So hypothetically, I have no idea if this is true.
It's not about a need. It's not about a need. It's about what's deserved, what's appropriated, what has been promised.
Elizabeth Warren wants to extend the same idea to Native Americans. Should we do that?
Why not?
Okay, how about the Irish?
Why not? I'm asking you legit questions of why not?
I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea in general.
Why?
I think that there are better ways to do it.
So what's a better way for black people to feel like in this country, in this world? Do you understand that there is a school to prison pipeline that currently exists? There is a trend that happens in the inner city.
You should be happy about President Trump and the Republicans with the First Step Act.
No, right? I should never. Don't ever tell me I should be proud of President Trump.
Come on. Oh, no. Now we got to talk about this. Why not?
Because at the end of the day, that's a person who has been proven to not align himself with those who are minorities for the benefit. I'm telling you exactly what I'm talking about. President Trump
fixture in the black community until he ran as a Republican. And
he wasn't a fixture. He was never a fixture in the black community. How was he a fixture? How was he a fixture?
But you've seen pictures of him with Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton.
You just told me about pictures. How is that a fixture? You know who's a fixture? You know who's a fixture?
He liked him.
So let me ask you a question. You know who's a fixture in the black community? Colin Kaepernick. You know who's a fixture in the black community? Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
People in the people. Hold on. Let me answer. Let me speak. Hold on. Let me make it clear. Hold on. Let me make it clear. When you say fixture, I want to make sure we're speaking the same language. A fixture is a person who should be looked upon with reverence and with respect because of what they sacrificed for their culture. Not someone who took a picture.
Not automatically. It doesn't matter what Trump does because you're going to automatically say he's not part of the culture, so therefore he can't be a fixture.
No, that's not true because I wouldn't even be talking to you on this podcast if I didn't feel like there weren't other people who were fixtures of the culture.
Be a fixture of the black community?
You said what now?
What would I have to do, Andrew Justice, to be a fixture of the black community?
I would say be an ally. I would say be an ally of what we're trying to accomplish, which is ultimately equality.
Would you agree that this is a nice step?
This is a great step. No, first off, this ain't a nice step. This is TOLPcast.com. This is the best step of being a fixture of the black community.
Trump came on TOL podcast, he would be a fixture?
Goddamn-lutely, yes. So if he wants to come on and he wants to have the conversation, sure. But Andrew, what you've shared is far greater than what he's ever had a discussion on when it comes to the black plight and the injustices that have happened in our community, because you have a president who shames black athletes for standing up or for kneeling or for wearing apparel or for doing anything that expresses their personal point of view. However, he still wants the same respect for his own point of view.
I respectfully disagree on a number of fronts. Number one, he was never against...
You don't have to respectfully disagree. Just disagree. It's thinking out loud. Go ahead.
He never disrespected black athletes in general. Okay. I think it was very specifically...
Shut up and dribble?
I don't remember that part. What was that?
You know
what
what?
Was that to?
And that's the problem. That's the problem, Andrew.
Give me the background, because maybe if you're talking about the one I think you're talking about, then we can talk about that one.
Let's talk about it. So, expecting athletes to shut up and dribble, expecting athletes to stay out of politics, expecting athletes who don't show up at the White House because they feel that they're against what his beliefs are, and he chastises them. Those are very immature, and those are very flagrant grievances and egregious actions that he's taken against people of color. And I feel like, when do we draw the line and say, when do we call a spade a spade?
First? I mean, President Trump extended the invitation, right?
But we don't want the invitation.
Come on now. Like, if he extends an invitation and you rescind the invitation, you can't then turn around and say, like, well, he hates black people because we didn't go to the White House.
Never said hate. I want to make it clear that it's not hate. It just doesn't care about. There's a difference.
Look, okay, here, let me say this. I believe that President Trump in 2 years has done more for the black culture than any other president before him.
You are out of your mind.
Here, let's start easy. Obama. He's done more for the black culture than Obama.
How?
How am I wrong? Well, for number one, the First Step Act. And number two, even Van Jones has said as much.
So Van Jones gets to be the black spokesperson for...
No, but, he's no Trump fan. And for him to come out and say, so he spoke at CPAC this weekend, or I think it was yesterday, and he basically said that the Republicans, Trump assumed to be part of that group, is doing it right for the black community in terms of the pipeline that you talked about, the school to prisons. Did you see the State of the Union?
Yes. Okay,
and so you saw Michael, the first person let out of prison as a result of that reform, right? That's basically what the black community has been calling for the last, 10, 20, 30 years, right?
It's okay. So let me just answer that. I'm going to give you a yes. That is one of the aspects that has been asked for, other than the asking for the reduction and elimination of police brutality against people of color, and also the injustices that have been occurring as far as incarceration of people of color. So those are two big things that are still occurring, and I feel like there is a such thing as a token act. A token act is when a token act, I'm not saying a token black man, I'm not saying a token white man, I'm just saying a token act is when you do something to say, I am a part of this initiative, so let me do this one thing and get the support of the people who are opposed to what they believe I'm about. I believe that personally with Trump, he's not a genuine person when it comes to how he feels about people who don't look like him. Because,
Why do you say that?
well, okay,
I mean,
so
I honestly
Andrew,
don't-
Andrew, look at the border. Okay,
Okay.
answer me this.
Mhm.
Do you think, and I have the facts for this. Do you think that more illegal drugs come through, or more illegal immigrants rather, come through the border of Mexico or through air flights that come into the United States?
That's a loaded question. I know where you're going with this.
So
And
answer the
answer-
question. If it's loaded, then answer it.
The illegal crossings are clearly through the porous border. I think what you're getting at is that there are people who come here legally and then overstay their visa. And obviously those guys, I mean, no one's going to swim from Europe and show up on Ellis Island and sneak into the country.
Right.
So it's like 40%, 50% of the people who are here illegally, absolutely, you're right, come through airports by overstaying their visas.
Right.
But people who cross the border illegally, obviously cross the border illegally.
So
They're not coming in through airports, they're coming in through the porous border.
okay. So
And-
which is worse?
Which is worse?
Yes.
Well, I mean, so obviously the people crossing illegally, not through an airport, but through a porous border is worse because those people have never been vetted. They're almost always terrorists. I shouldn't say that. I mean, obviously we've had a lot of terrorists come.
Wow. You said they're almost always terrorists?
No. I'm talking about when the terrorists come.
But I'm
These
saying,
kids-
did you just say that they're almost...
No, we got to edit that out because that is
Okay.
not saying at all.
Okay, so I'm making it clear that's not what you meant to say. Go ahead with what you meant to say.
What I meant to say was the people who cross illegally have never been vetted. There are a number of documented cases where terrorists have crossed illegally through the porous border. And I guess in my head I can think of a few, like the Richard Reed the shoe bomber. There were obviously terrorists who came through the airport, through flights from other places. But drugs, lots of drugs obviously come through the border. And now in Ohio, actually in the United States, did you know that you're more likely down to die of an opioid overdose than any other means?
Yes, I did. And I find it very interesting that when it comes to the opioid crisis, that is considered to be quite different than what was the war on drugs that occurred 2 decades ago. I don't understand, and you can help me if you can understand, why is it that something that's considered to be a white drug, an opioid addiction, is different than someone who has an addiction to crack, heroin, methamphetamine, some type of other...
Heroin is opium.
Okay, so let's bring it back just to crack. Let's say, so the war on drugs, when we were cracking down on people, no pun intended, who were on crack, it wasn't a crisis. It wasn't a crisis.
I don't
It
think
was
that's
a war on
true.
drugs, but it was a war on drugs. And I'm almost certain, was that Barbara Bush or George Bush?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So with that being said, why was it when black people had an addiction to a drug, it was an attack on us, but then now that the opioid addiction occurs, they need help, and we need to not imprison them?
Well, first of all, I've never said that. I never thought that.
No, I'm not saying you do. I'm speaking for the country.
Well, okay, but again, I can't represent all of white people on this one issue. But I can tell you that the people
Well,
I
you're
talk to,
you're not white though. You're Irish, right?
well,
don't
right?
don't give the wink and the smile. Don't do that. Don't do that.
It's almost St. Paddy's Day, but I can do that because I'm Irish.
Okay, so
Anyway, but seriously,
go ahead.
If you're talking to me, my personal opinion, it doesn't change based on the addiction, right? So I guess that's a fair point about the way we're handling it differently. But I would also say that 20 years ago, I was a teenager. So don't rely on me for, the reporting from the ground about something that happened.
But I'm going to rely on you for where you stand right now as an adult male. Do you believe that there was a distinction between the drugs that black people were addicted to and the drugs that white people are addicted to? Do you believe that there's a distinction between how they're being handled? Yes or no?
I think that there's a distinction. Obviously, there's a distinction between the way that crack was handled back then and the way that they're addressing heroin now.
So that's not fair, correct?
But that's just it. I mean, if the assumption that is based purely on race, then absolutely not fair. Agreed wholeheartedly. But you also have to remember that we now have 20, 30 years of experience with the war on drugs.
But black men are still getting incarcerated for possession of weed. Possession of marijuana. You still have men getting incarcerated for that, for possession of marijuana in states that it is still illegal in. You still have men getting incarcerated on possession of crack cocaine and the opioid addiction, which is huge in Ohio. You see a lot of news reports that say we need to help these people. We need to get them rehab. We need to get them off of this. And I feel like that's another institutionalized way of distinguishing between here's a drug that people of color use and here's a drug of non-color, and we need to treat them differently. And that's the way that I see it. I'm interested in how you see it.
Well, first, okay, let me go on record to say that I don't know anybody who does crack, and anybody who's done crack. Anybody who's heroin or done heroin.
I do. And so, my uncle did crack. My uncle is a crackhead.
Well, okay, so my understanding is that with crack specifically, the issue wasn't so much the drug; it was the things that people did in order to get the drugs, robbery, larceny, those kind of things. And so I defer to you as the expert on this one. Is that true?
Don't refer to me as an expert on crack. I'm saying
not on crack.
What you're saying, and I get what you're saying. I'm being jovial in that, but what I'm saying is, you can't tell me that because my uncle may have broken into some homes, stolen a refrigerator, stolen some copper to get a fix, and then you have these kids who are going to their dealers with these quote unquote designer drugs. That makes them any better. I feel like, again, that's another institutionalized distinction between the two type of cultures. But that's how I feel from my experience. And I'm not saying I'm right, or I'm not saying I'm wrong.
Handled them differently. I don't think they should be handled any differently.
So how should they all be handled? Shouldn't everybody get help?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
So then why are we imprisoning all these black men for
again, Trump is stopping that.
He's stopping black men from getting incarcerated?
With the First Step Act, the idea is to reduce those kinds of problems, to intervene when the matters of the situation don't dictate that somebody should go to jail. And in fact, you'll be happy.
You just said a bunch of words that don't make sense. Break it down again.
Makes no sense. So the issue is that, just like you said, when prisons get privatized and there becomes a financial benefit for sending people to prison, more people go to prison. Right. And so your point earlier, you're saying that it's more black people than white people.
Right.
Okay. And so what I'm saying is that the point of the First Step Act is to undo a lot of the stuff that Clinton did, like the 3 strikes and you're out law and the mandatory minimums.
I'm with that.
Which just automatically send, like you specifically, black men to jail.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's the point of the law that the Republicans passed, is to stop that nonsense and to treat situations the way they should be treated, not because Clinton said 30 years ago that, anybody that does crime 3 times needs to go to jail. No, I don't think that that's fair. I don't think they should be held differently. Now, I would defer to medical science, and if there's a way to cure people of their crack addiction or their cocaine addiction, their heroin addiction.
There's rehab. Rehab exists right now.
Yeah, then absolutely we should do that, especially for non-violent offenders. And I don't know if the First Step Act does that, but I would be personally disappointed if it didn't.
Okay. I hate to say it, but I do actually agree with you on that point. So...
Well,
because it's the truth. It's the truth. The 3 strikes, all that was bullshit. I feel like and
that was Clinton.
I'm not a Clinton fan. I'm just saying I agree with you on that point.
Republicans and Democrats and.
Well, no, but we talked initially about conservatives and liberals because you said you're a staunch Republican. I'm sorry, you said you're a staunch conservative. So I just want to be fair.
I think you are.
And I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. Okay. I'm just me. I am J Lip, and I am J Lip on Instagram, TOLPcast.com. we got a couple more things to go through before time runs out because we got too many families and not enough time to handle it. So with that being said, I want to go through some of these questions that people wanted me to address with you before you come back on. And there will be a third version of this. Andrew, justice. You will bring the justice. We need you because you are the voice of the voiceless, I feel like, on this platform. Quite honest. No, seriously.
Well, I mean, you make a good point.
Consider yourself a minority on this platform.
More important than I think I should, but
no. The reason why it's important is because
I feel.
The reason why it's important, Andrew, is because there's a lot of people who feel that they can't have or even try to attempt to maintain a discussion with someone who doesn't look like them, someone who doesn't share their heritage. And it's hard. And I know, like, from your response, you know, it's odd, but there are less black people than there are white people. That's a fact. So when it comes down to it, if I'm in a corporate, say it again.
Us Asians than white people, so I know how you feel.
I'm not talking about Asian people right now. We can get to them in a minute. But for right now, you are in the minority on a platform that is primarily listened to and viewed by black people. So I want to make sure I get these questions answered. So I want to go through it, and we're going to do these quick, fast, because at this point, we got about 5 minutes left. So first and foremost, we're friends. We know each other. I play with your kids. Been to the house. I'm not doing this to antagonize you, but I need to know what your opinion is on the following. So the first is, here we go. Kaepernick kneeling. What do you think?
In general, so I support his ability and his right to speak his mind. I think that he has brought attention to a very important issue in America, and for that I'm thankful for what he did. Having said that, I think that as a millionaire, there are much better ways and much better things that he could have done, much more efficient, much more productive things.
Why does everybody say he could have done something else than what he did?
Okay, because he could have.
But why? Why wasn't what he did good enough?
Well, okay, so...
And keep in mind, he wasn't the only person who kneeled. Beast Mode,
agreed. Like, all the Raiders kneeled, and that's my team.
Marshawn Lynch would eat bananas and do stretches during the national anthem. There was no coverage of that.
All right, so tell me. So what was the benefit?
The benefit was from what he said, which is, I want to bring attention to the injustices of our police and our law enforcement and the injustices that they provide against people of color. So he said, I will kneel on this flag, or I will kneel before this flag to bring attention to that. And then you have actual people who have served in the army who say they support him, and still people said he was being disrespectful. If the people who say that they're being disrespectful didn't even serve. That boggles my mind.
I mean, that's not fair, because I know a lot of people who have served, and it bothered them too.
Okay, so it bothered them. Why?
Well, first of all, because it would be like, if I'm mad at you, I spit in someone else's eyes.
It's not spitting. That is asinine. That is no.
But it is
Andrew, I can't let you say that. He did not spit. He took a knee.
No.
He took a knee.
It. I'm saying, like, as an allegory for something else that he did. For me, I already said that, he has a right to do it, and that's fine. I think that there are better ways he could have done it. I think that...
But what are the better ways that would make people feel... Because what I hear when I hear people say better ways, it's like, there are ways that you could have done it that would have made me feel more comfortable. And it's not about making you feel comfortable.
Look, man, he was the starting quarterback. Well, his last year wasn't so great, but
right.
He had the attention of the nation after every game. He could have used his entire time with the media to say, you know what, the game was great. Unfortunately, we lost. Let me talk about something much more important.
But who's going to cover that? Let me ask you this though.
Everybody. I mean, it's not. Do you honestly think they're going to just turn off the cameras and say, "Well, this is boring"?
Fox News will. Fox News will.
I don't believe that. I believe
that news media is biased. At the end of the day, the best news media that I have found is BBC. because they're an outsider looking in. So
Sure.
everybody else that's on the inside, they have their agenda. But what I struggle with and what I'm still asking is, why do you find that he should have done something different? What was wrong with what he did?
Because I think that if I felt very deeply about an issue, and if there were two or more things that I could have done, wouldn't you think that I really, really cared about the issue if I did the thing that alleviates that issue? I mean, so think of everything that he did, and think about the good that giving $1 million to some worthy organization. Which do you think would have brought more attention to his issue, along with benefits to what he's trying to accomplish?
I believe what he did would have been more beneficial because there are people who have more money than him. And if you want to use an example, I'll use Robert Kraft, who's a $6 billionaire who was paying $60 to $100 to women who were a part of a sex trafficking instance within a massage parlor. At the end of the day, money doesn't guarantee you a voice to make change, but he affected change by his actions. And what I will equate him to, hold on, let me say this. What I will equate him to is, if people said the same thing or had the same mentality about Rosa Parks, they would have said, Rosa Parks, why didn't you just not take the bus? Why didn't you just walk to work? Why didn't you just show your protest by sitting at home? But no, she took an action that would drive and affect change. It would draw attention. It's all about driving and drawing attention and saying, look, here I am. I'm disgruntled. Here are my issues. Deal with it. Fix it. And that's what she did. And so Kaepernick did the same thing.
But he didn't. So the big difference is that the action that Rosa Parks took was immediate and direct on the object of her ire.
And it was illegal.
Okay. I mean, we all think that she did a great job, right? I mean, neither one of us thinks that.
No, we do. But I'm saying she did something that was illegal. Kaepernick didn't do anything that was illegal, and yet he's getting... Go ahead.
No, but no one wants to arrest him.
But they blackballed him from the league. That's why he won his wrongful... He won a wrongful termination legal case against the NFL.
I heard this podcast too. I don't think that's true. First of all,
wow,
no admission of guilt. It was a settlement, and I think even Mrs. Lip talked about this when she said that there were no details that came out. Actually,
so do you not believe that settlements are an admission of guilt?
Well, but officially. But I mean,
no. Say what you just said. You said unofficially.
Yeah. So his specifically, like Mrs. Lip said, there was a
don't try to leverage Mrs. Lip in here. This is me and you, brother. This is me and you talking. This is Ebony and Ivory right now. Okay, this is us.
I get to be. Which one am I?
Ebony.
That's what I thought.
Go ahead, Ebony.
No. So I have no idea. My personal opinion is that in the end, so Kaepernick started off as obviously a great quarterback. The 49ers, what was he, like 14?
It don't matter. Get to what your end point is.
He wasn't that great of a quarterback in the last 2 years.
Got it.
His last year, the 49ers went 2-16, 2-18.
Got it.
And he was on his career was already on the downward slope.
Okay, got it.
So I'm not convinced that he was blackballed because of his protest. Now, I will say that.
So why did they settle? Why did they settle and pay him millions of dollars for his legal case of unlawful termination? Why? Why did they settle? If they were in the right, why did they settle?
Well, I mean, because it was going to cost them millions of dollars to go through it.
But they have. You're talking about.
I have no
it's
idea.
a $1 billion company, Andrew. This is a $1 billion company you're talking about.
No, I get it, but they don't want to drag out this stuff either. I mean, if it's easier just to pay him,
wow.
We don't know how many. I know that his agent said 60 to 80, but if I were his agent, I'd say that too, in the hopes that other players come and sue, and I get a 10% piece of that.
But he wasn't the only person that won. It was him and another person that won that unlawful termination case.
But again, it was a settlement.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're right. To not win the case
is
different than to win a settlement. I will give you that. But to win a settlement means, in my opinion, that there's an admission that some wrongdoing occurred, and I do not want to continue with this litigation. Because if you use the examples of, let's say, a Michael Jackson settling with the kids, or an R. Kelly settling with the little girls, or all these other situations where people settled, you can even use Cohen and Stormy Daniels. Like, there's cases where people have settled because they don't want to go through litigation, because they don't want to go through being proven wrong and have to pay a worse penalty. That's. Can we agree on that? Can we agree on that? Can we agree on that?
I mean, I agree that certain circumstances like that do occur. Sure.
So can you understand that what Kaepernick was settling for, as far as what he was paid, was a part of an initiative of the NFL to not continue with this lawsuit of unlawful termination? He had a case.
No, if it's because the NFL just had so much money that it's easier to pay, or because Kaepernick really had.
So if the NFL has so much money to pay, then why didn't they just go through it and win?
Well, I mean, because it could. I mean, just like you said, there's always the risk that they'll lose. It could end up costing.
What's the risk
more
that they'll lose if they're in the right? What's the risk that they'll lose?
Because it's not guaranteed. I mean,
it's not guaranteed because they did it. They blackballed him. They literally did that.
I don't think I can see where the evidence would suggest that.
Because the evidence is statistically he was better than 90% of all third string quarterbacks. That's
I mean,
evidence.
To make the case that he should be on the third string, that's fine. But then, I mean, if you were an NFL owner, there are plenty of third string guys around.
If I was an NFL owner, I wouldn't hold someone back because they kneeled for something that they believed in, and that's what they were trying to stifle.
I mean, but see, I disagree. I think that the NFL owners who didn't take him, I mean, we don't know what they think or why they did it.
You're right.
But I think it's reasonable that they would pass on him because there are guys who may not be as good, but they're just about as good, and they don't bring the baggage that he brings. And by baggage, I mean the attention, the problems that occurred when disagreements like this happen in the locker room.
Okay, so I will leave it at the fact that we disagree on that, and that's okay, because
I think that what he did was, I think it was important that he started the conversation.
I think what he did was noble and honorable, and I think that anybody who goes against and says that I served in the armed forces and therefore it's disrespectful to me, it's not the same thing as somebody taking the flag and wiping their ass with it, or somebody taking the flag and being disrespectful and burning it. What he did was he took a knee during the national anthem. It's the simplest act that he could have done, but yet it was amplified to be something greater than what it really was as far as a detrimental act. That, to me, is where I struggle with understanding.
And so just to say what I already said in conclusion, I think that the way that he did it in a way that was not as productive as it could have been.
It was very productive. He won a settlement. He can come back to the league now. He's got people talking about it.
You know what? You know, to determine which one of us is right, what he does with that $80 million. If he donates a significant portion or does anything with it beneficial to his cause, you're absolutely right. I would agree with you wholeheartedly.
Andrew, he started a whole cause about this with the money that he had from the NFL when he was blackballed. So why does that not count to you? Why does that not count to you?
No, I think I'm happy with what he did, the conversations he started. I think that's fair.
No. I'm talking about the money. He started an actual foundation about the injustices. He's already put in millions of dollars. Why is that not a part of the conversation with you?
Well, first of all, you should have said that from the start. I had no idea that he did
that. And that's on me, so I apologize for that. He did do that. He started an initiative. I don't have the name on me right now because my internet is too slow, but I can't look it up. So with that being said, he did do that. He started an initiative, and it started to get the conversation going, but he already put millions of dollars that he already had from previous contracts into it. So to me, I don't need to see him put more money into it. I saw him put money into it. He already did it with the little bit that he had, with no guarantee that he was going to win a settlement nor get back into the league.
I mean, first, he's already a multi-millionaire before any of this happened, and now he's $100 millionaire probably.
See, now we counting his pockets and we're making assumptions.
Oh, well, yeah, but I mean, didn't you just say that Robert Kraft should have done more because he's richer? I mean, let's apply that same standard to Kaepernick.
Actually,
if he's got $100 million, he should be able to. If he truly believes in what he says he does, it only stands to reason that he would invest his many millions of dollars in that issue.
So once again, it comes back to money. It comes back to what money can get you as far as progression and affecting change. So
no, but I mean, take a step back and look. So if I told you that there was this guy, and he took a stand, it wasn't popular. 2 years later, he was $100 million richer. I mean, that's not the typical tale of a martyr.
Okay, yet, I still can't get past the fact that you're telling me that you know people who felt disrespected by him kneeling for the flag. That to me, is it boggles my mind, because both of my in-laws, my wife's parents both served in the military, and it boggles my mind to understand how somebody could say that for kneeling to show injustice in the United States, that's disrespectful to the people who are fighting abroad, who we respect so much. We're just saying right here, right now, stop shooting and killing black people while they're not doing anything wrong.
Absolutely. But see, that's my point, is that for the longest time, no one had any idea why he was kneeling. And so I think that's probably the misunderstanding of this whole situation, is that he did something that on the face seems like an affront to this country, right? I mean, the goal of every American should be hopefully to be united.
No.
What?
We're not united.
No, but the goal should be. I mean, that's why we're here, right? You and I. That's why we're doing this.
We're doing this.
Building bridges.
We're correct. We're doing this. You and I. This country is not doing what we're doing. And the proof is in the fact that after 100 and some odd episodes of a podcast, you're the first person that's not of color to have the courage and the confidence to come on here and have this discussion. To me, that's evidence right there that we're not united. Me and you can be united, but this country is not.
Well, agreed. But I mean, you and I think, are doing our part to be united.
I think we're trying. I think we are trying.
And so, I mean, I guess maybe in defense of the people who were invited on the show but couldn't come.
Every person in the world has been invited.
No, I know. But remember, Megyn Kelly got fired from CNN, I think, or NBC. She got fired because she said that she thought that performing blackface was not as bad as murder. I mean, something
ignorant. She got fired for something ignorant.
But I mean, I would say it's no more ignorant than some of the opinions that we share on the show. I mean, but that's my point, is that now they're fired for things that. What? You don't think that's legit?
I want to come back to this because I feel like this is very pertinent. What you just it seems like every time we speak, you say something that needs to trigger another conversation. So the next episode that we talk, which will be soon, which will be the part 3 of this trilogy, I want to talk to you about the Megyn Kelly and the comments that she made as far as blackface, because I know, and I know that you know, that there has been a huge wave of black outrage over blackface apparel in the past 2 weeks, correct?
Well, so to be fair, I only know about it from your podcast.
Okay, so with that being said, I'll make sure I get you the information that you need so that you'll be prepared to have the conversation, because once again, we are friends. You are a good person, and that is why I trust your opinion and I have your opinion on this platform, because it's necessary for us to bridge the gap. We have to start with us, and then we trickle down to everyone else.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Let me say real quick though.
Go ahead.
Anti-blackface. Not a fan of.
Say it again.
I'm saying this seriously. I am anti-blackface.
Anti-blackface. Oh well, then you shut that shit down. So we'll get to the next topic. But
did you think I was going to be pro?
I didn't know. You just said what Megyn Kelly said. I'm saying is
no. I'm saying that I don't think it's fair that she got fired for expressing and again, she wasn't pro blackface. I mean, we will have to get the exact statement, but it was something along the lines of, I don't think that, was it Northrum? I don't think that he should be fired for taking a picture 20 years ago in blackface.
Okay, so let's
so
stop.
He didn't get fired for doing it, but she got fired for saying that, well, maybe he shouldn't be fired.
Okay, so, and what's the name again, so I can research that?
Megyn Kelly.
No, the person who you said from 20 years ago.
I think it was Governor Northrum from Virginia. I think that's who she was talking about.
All right. With that being said, I want to look that up. I want to get the research on that. I want to have the conversation with you. Will you be willing to come back so that we can have this dialogue and kind of drill down and get
it's
to
going to be fast. It's going to be very anticlimactic. Andrew, are you pro blackface? Nope.
Well, It's not just, that wasn't going to be the only topic. I will give you the heads up that the topics that I didn't get to that I wanted to talk to you about were, I wanted to talk about, do you have or do you feel any type of sense of what they call quote unquote white guilt due to the ancestry of white people who owned slaves or white slave masters? I would imagine that you don't, because you are an immigrant from Ireland. So I'm assuming that you won't, but I will still ask the question. I want to talk to you about the diversity for children who are not of color with children of color so that we can change a generation. And I also want to talk to you about giving you the opportunity to explain, or rather give your opinion on the how do I say this? The educational inequality when it comes to the clear distinction between Detroit public schools, which is an area I'm familiar with, where books are shared, there's not enough resources to go around, and then you have perhaps like a Dublin or an Upper Arlington school district where there are iPads for every child to take home and learn. I want to talk to you about education, how we can better our society, our community as one, not black people, not white people, but Americans. So with that being said, thank you, Andrew Justice. Thank you for.
What about the other questions?
We don't have time, man. It's been like 47 minutes. Come on now. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Another reason to come back.
Okay, so let's do it. Part 3, come back, and I hope that we can continue this dialogue as open and honestly as we have been. Unfortunately, I am a little bit disturbed by the fact that your picture and your video is very sharp and crispy. Mine, for some reason, is not. So, what type of phone do you have?
Samsung Galaxy.
Well, I have a Note 9, and it should be killing yours.
I only have a 7, man. I don't know.
I know my phone should be taking a big dump on yours. But regardless, at the end of the day, I appreciate you. Andrew Justice in the building. I am J Lip at I am J Lip on Instagram. TOLPcast.com. We will be back. Ebony and Ivory. This is the series that we're doing. I am Ebony. He is Ivory. And we will make magic. Let's get it. TOLPcast.com, and we're out.